This is Akashwani Bengaluru.
Hello and welcome to this edition of English Talks. In the studios this evening, we have Satyesh Narayanaswamy Bellur, and he's going to talk about value addition when doing business beyond boundaries. And I'm Rosalind Matthew. Sir, will you please kindly introduce yourself?
At the outset, my salutations to all the listeners and my friends here at Akashwani. I am Satyesh Bellur. I'm an engineer. I worked for about 33 years in the corporate industry, primarily focusing in the area of telecommunications technology. I've been in sales and marketing and projects all through. It was my privilege that I had a great opportunity to visit more than 60 countries where I successfully conducted business for the companies that I represented. Apart from that, I also have a special interest in literature. So about 4 years back, I quit my corporate job and started my NGO, which primarily focuses on providing guidance for students in the high school sections on rural Karnataka. In addition to that, I'm a writer and I spend my time speaking at various forums, trying to share my knowledge of not just the business aspect but also in the field of Kannada and English literature. In short, that's me.
Welcome
Yes.
to the program. And you've had a wide experience in the telecom sector, and you have some very interesting experiences to recount.
Primarily, visiting another country is like trying to get to know a altogether different civilization, right? People say that if you know a language, you know another culture. So for me, it was so good that my work took me outside of India. The experiences that I have gathered while traveling across these countries and conducting business ranges from very personal experiences that gave me insights into life in general to very professional experiences. That is which something that I cherish. Doesn't happen unless you go and visit countries to do business. You know, if you go there as a traveler, of course, you come back with loads of experiences on
And
the personal
souvenirs.
front and souvenirs. Yeah, souvenirs, lots of them. But when you go there on a very professional work, you also try to understand another aspect of the civilization there, which is pertaining to the business, their take on what is important for them and so on and so forth. So it is a very nice experience when you go there on work because you get to enhance both your personal and professional and know-how of people in general.
Have you learnt any languages?
A little bit of German because that's the country I went very initially when I used to work for Siemens. We used to interact a lot with our colleagues there. So a little bit of German, but I've kind of forgotten. But of late, my travel always used to be to go and do business, conclude and come back. So I never kind of stayed in any country for more than a couple of days. I used to go from one country to another. There was no need for me to learn the language as such, but if I had learnt it, it would have definitely added a different facet into my personality. I do agree on that.
You just mentioned that you come across different civilizations. What are they interested in us when we are doing business with them?
See, the whole idea that one goes outside of India is to go and sell, right? At the end of the day, if you don't sell your product, then you're not converting your product into cash, which is the most critical link in the entire chain of business. There is not much of a difference between selling in India and trying to go out and sell. Most of it is the same because we use terms like customer relationship. It's a term which is very generic in nature. A lot of people use it, but they do not understand that customer relationship is not something that is imbibed overnight, but it is something that people have to work for years and years on.
Okay.
The entire balance 50% of winning over customers and actually signing the contracts. That happens only when somebody is able to very critically analyze and understand the customer preferences. It's only when they understand the customer preferences that they will come out with what we call as the value add. They bring that value add to the table. And as long as the customer doesn't see value in our relationship, he might personally say, hey, this guy is an excellent guy, I would like to work with him. He might say, oh, this product is good, I would like to consider that. Or he might tick off that aspect of professionalism. But still, if he doesn't see a value, my entire engagement is bringing it to the table, then there is no sale, right? There is no business. So understanding what values that people adhere to or give importance to, and then trying to fulfill that gap is the most critical aspect that is required. And that part is the only thing that differentiates between a successful selling in India to a successful selling in outside, because in India all of us more or less think alike, right? It's not a couple of minutes of talking to somebody you will know that, hey, this guy is like this. You can kind of put him into a box and say this is what this man or this woman is. But when you go outside India, every country, every customer is different, and you got to understand what they value most. And only when you understand that, you would be able to position your entire engagement, be it personal, be it professional, or the product, in such a way that it meets his innate requirement of his values, and then you will be able to succeed.
Can you give us some examples of that critical moment where you're able to identify what the person wants?
It is something that doesn't happen over one discussion, but it takes a lot of time, and this is something that even the management textbooks doesn't teach, right? It comes out of experience when you meet people, and when you have had a couple of failures in your life and you start analyzing this and say, hey, this has happened because of this, and you start correcting it and moving forward, and then you will realize, hey, moving forward in this way is getting me results. This is a chain of experiences that sums up into a final, a concoction, which I may say that, okay, I know that this works. For example, probably this is best understood with examples, right? Like if you go to Japan and meet Japanese there. Japanese are a kind of funny lot, in the sense that you give them a 3 hours presentation and walk out of the room, you won't know whether you have really impressed them or not, because they are people who are very serious. They laugh at their own jokes, but if you are trying to be a little humorous, they come up very serious, and you really don't know what's happening in their mind. And what is it that the Japanese really value? That is something, if we understand, then we can tailor our 3 hours engagement with them in such a way that at the end of it, they will feel good. The most important aspect in any of our engagement with Japanese is quality. They are absolutely quality conscious. And if somebody has worked in a Japanese company, they will know that when it comes to quality, they don't have, ifs and buts. There is no compromise that they do. Just to further this discussion, if in India we have, say, 100 tests which is required in order to clear a product, we will try to segregate them into 50 critical, about 30 not so critical, and about 10-20 chalta hai, that kind of a thing. Even if it doesn't work, it's okay. And then we focus on those 40-50 critical things. It saves a lot of time, and sometimes it makes sense, but to Japanese it doesn't. For the Japanese, if there are 100 tests, all the 100 are critical. And over and above that, they are so fussy about this quality aspect that even if one of the tests fails, they don't just keep on repeating that one test in order to tick it off and move forward. If one fails, they repeat all the 100. So that is the stickiness that they have for quality. So when you go and sit in front of Japanese, if you're talking about your product, your price, your various other aspects, somewhere you're not striking a chord. You need to focus more on what all you do back end in order to ensure that you're giving them something which is absolutely top end in quality. And you got to praise them for the emphasis that they lay on quality, and how working with them has helped you to improve your own quality standards within the organization, and so on. So that quality is probably the key value that Japanese attach to. And if somebody goes to Japan and is spending a lot of time not talking about quality, then he might be personally coming up as a good friend of theirs, and product might be good, and professionally they might like. But if they don't hear that emphasis on quality, somewhere it will take for a long time for them to decide. These are the nuances of working with different kinds of people and trying to understand what they value most. And then, like for example, if you go to Germany, people there, whether they are selling a toothpaste or whether they're selling a rocket, they always look for technology. They're very, very technology conscious. Technology conscious in the sense, we are at a certain level of technology today. They're more interested in what is there for tomorrow. So when we go to Germany, we focus a lot on technology. For a very simple example, I come from the field of telecommunication. So I'm going there, for example, to meet a German and sell him a 5G network, right? If I am talking to him about only 5G, he doesn't get excited. More than 5G, I need to talk to him about 5.5 or 6, which is going to come a year or 2 or 3 later. That is something that gets him excited. For example, Germans are generally, unlike Indians, if I have to compare myself with them, Germans are kind of experts, unlike we being generalists. They are experts. For instance, when I went to Germany years back, I was trying to go there in order to earn as much of knowledge possible on a particular testing equipment for telecommunications. Back home in India, I was to sell that product, I was to build that product, I was to get the deliveries done, and I was the guy who had to go and install, commission it, and if there is a problem, rectify it. Kind of one-man army, a generalist, right? But when I went to Germany in order to understand that product, I had to go to 5-6 different places in Germany, and everywhere one man used to come, open the box for me and remove one module out of it. And he was an expert in that. He never knew what was even adjacent to that. So I went to Karlsruhe, the guy came and opened the power supply in that box and only explained to me everything about power supply. He knows the pins and I's and dots, like we say, right? He doesn't even know the adjacent processing card that sits there. And here I am trying to understand the whole box and try to come and work on that. Germans is like, it's always good because they feel that one man won't be able to know everything. And they would like to go in depth into every subject. We spread ourselves quite thin. And that's the need in India. I'm not telling which is right or wrong. But when we go to Germany, if I go alone and I'm trying to talk about all the aspects of the product, they will think that, oh, this guy is a pure sales guy, he's not doing justice. So I need to go there with a team. I need to take somebody who talks about a particular aspect of the product, somebody who talks about finance, somebody who talks about... Then they are very comfortable that, hey, what we are hearing from this company is coming from its experts, not just one generalist. These are all small nuances which you need to know. Otherwise, you go into Japan not talking about quality, you go to Germany not talking about technology, then you are just wasting your time.
On the contrary, how do people look at us?
This is a very interesting question. How do they look at us, right? Again, different countries look at us in different ways. For example, if you go to US, then people look at you, especially when you're talking to them about a technology aspect or in the sense telecommunications, IT and all of these other fields. They have a lot of respect and they would like to listen to you for the simple reason that the Indians who have been to US in the last so many years have kind of created an environment where the locals believe that when Indians are coming and talking, they make sense. So there is a lot of respect. There is nothing like, oh, he's from a developing country, I don't have to listen to him. That kind of thing, at least in the US, is not there. If you go to some of the countries like the oil-rich countries, for instance, the kind of Indians that they have seen who are not into the technology space, and if you're trying to go and sell them a technology piece of product or service, then they don't much entertain you. Some places I have seen them even rubbishing you, kind of telling that, no, we have the Europeans, we have the Americans, why do we need Indians in this space? Slowly that's also changing because some of the IT companies of India have been doing relatively better there. But even if you look at the successful Indian companies in the US and in oil-rich countries, US probably it was a lot more easier for them to get acceptance, whereas oil-rich companies, it has taken them decades even to break that barrier about people thinking that anything from India is cheap, anything from India is low quality and so on and so forth. I believe that the right direction that we are moving in terms of providing our services to the world, not just supplying our the rice, wheat and other things, but also getting into the critical piece of communication, critical piece of electronics, critical piece of defense and other important areas. I think given another 10 years and continuing in the same speed and intensity like we are doing today, we would probably be equal to China, if not better.
It was a real pleasure talking to you. Yeah. Thank you for sharing your views and thank you for coming.
Thanks. It was my pleasure.
Value addition when doing business beyond boundaries. That was the topic of English Talks this evening. With us was Satyesh Narayanaswamy Belur and I'm Rosalind Matthew. Signing off. Till next time. Have a pleasant evening.
This was a presentation of Akashwani Bengaluru.